Behavioral Analysis, Elliot Rodger. Why do girls hate me so much? Friday, May 23rd, 2014. A day which will forever be a day of infamy for the residents of Isla Vista, California. 22-year-old Elliot Oliver Robertson Rodger managed to kill 6 people and injure 22 others as he unleashed his day of retribution, introverted rage, against the ones he perceived to do him wrong the most of his very short and young life. Elliot's primary target was women. Elliot was known to be an extreme introvert for the majority of his life, and the effects of his shyness and social awkwardness managed to turn him into the unthinkable. Some people give Elliot various labels. The ones that take most prominence are misogynist, psychopath, sociopath, and some even hail him as the so-called supreme gentleman and a hero to the Incel community. Elliot has given us a fantastic opportunity to examine his inner psyche with the videos he left behind on his YouTube channel and his written manifesto entitled My Twisted World. This behavioral analysis series will look into the videos and the written testimony of Elliot Rodger. The first video to be examined is entitled, Why Do Girls Hate Me So Much? Let's begin our analysis.
Hey, Elliot Rodger here. I'm up in the hills in Montecito right now. It's truly a beautiful day. But, as I've always said, a beautiful environment is the darkest hell if you have to experience it all alone. And sadly, I've been alone for a very long time.
There's a lot of stress in his face. You look into his eyes, like this guy is extremely depressed. You can tell by the look in his face. And for what I can tell, he's conveying real, genuine emotion. And this is something that's been frustrating him for quite some time. And yeah, you can tell that, his body language is very, he has, it's very depressed body language, like his eyebrows scrouched up, his eyes looking like they're just about to cry, and then his shoulders, just, slouched on the side. He's definitely depressed.
I've been attending college in Santa Barbara for about 2.5 years now. And in those 2.5 years, I've experienced nothing but loneliness and misery. And my problem is girls.
And the way he points at the camera with such assertion with his right hand, index finger stretched out. My problem is girls. He's just getting right straight to the problem. And this is obviously something that's been bothering him for quite some time.
There are so many beautiful girls here, but none of them give me a chance, and I don't know why. I don't know why you girls are so repulsed by me. It doesn't make sense. I do everything I can to appear attractive to you. I dress nice. I'm sophisticated and magnificent.
Elliot has very effeminate body language, like the way he talks, like the way he motions around and the way he touches himself haptically, like he has very effeminate body language. And as if I was like that, I'm just pretending that I'm just like he's having this conversation with me. And my first presumption of him is like the way he talks, like the paralanguage, like the tone of his voice, like it's very effeminate. Like he strikes me that he would be like a homosexual, and obviously he's not homosexual, but that could easily be people could easily mistaken like all those characteristics for him being that way. Obviously he's not, but we'll continue.
I have a nice car, a BMW. Well, it's nicer than 90% of the people in my college. polite. I'm the ultimate gentleman. And yet, you girls never give me a chance. I don't know why. You know, I put a lot of effort into dressing nice. These sunglasses here were $300. Giorgio Armani. So I'll put them on. See?
Okay, well, let's state the obvious here. Yes, he dresses nice. Yes, he wears fabulous Giorgio Armani sunglasses. He has a nice haircut. You know, okay, overall, he looks great. But the problem is, he's focused on superficial aspects of himself. I think the major problem that he had was character. He didn't develop his character. And he's putting like a lot of aspect on materialistic things that don't really hold that much significance. What it really comes down to, it comes down to like the level of character. Like, for example, how do you treat your parents? Like, how do you treat your family? How do you come across talking to somebody who happens to be, you know, at a disadvantage? Are you a kind person? Do you help out your neighbor? Do you have like a sense of kindness and benevolence about you that really attracts like those type of characteristics? Quite frankly, would attract women. I know that firsthand because, you know, it really comes down to character and how you carry yourself in situations. Like, how do you engage people in conversation, and how are you able to just, you know, carry a conversation for that matter? I think with Elliot, you know, he didn't bother to learn communication skills, and I think that was part of the reason why he had himself in such social isolation. If anything, his problem is communication and not showing a genuine good character, and that was his major downfall.
See? Look at how fabulous I look.
Well, obviously the person that drove by in that van did not appreciate the fabulousness of those Giorgio Armani sunglasses. There you go. I mean, people don't care about those things.
You know, I feel so invisible as I walk through my college because none of the girls there pay attention to me.
Probably because you don't talk to them or bother to engage them. Engagement is everything. If you really want people to pay attention to you, you need to engage them. You need to overcome the fears of being an introvert and learn how to communicate. I know some people that are introverted, and if they happen to be interested in somebody, they've learned to overcome that just by going up and starting up some small talk. It could be something like, oh, it's a nice day today. Oh, yeah, I'm just here to get my mail. Like, how are things going with you and the kids today? Or how was your brother's soccer game the other night? You know, like small talk. I mean, that's usually how you start off a conversation. It's just by little things like that. And I think of Elliot, like, he just did not learn how to go through the proper communication. And for example, like, it's quite evident that you can dress nice and wear Giorgio Armani sunglasses and no one's going to pay attention to you because you just look like some posh guy who thinks that, you know, they're it or whatever. And in this case, you know, it's all superficial stuff. And if you really want to attract someone, it's all about engaging in communication, which I think Elliot completely failed to do. And it's quite evident that he did fail to do that.
I see so many beautiful blonde-haired, just so many beautiful blonde-haired girls walking around everywhere. In your revealing shorts, your cascading blonde hair, your pretty faces.
He has an archetype of what he's attracted to. Blonde-haired women, so pretty much like the Baywatch beauty type. Maybe like a Pamela Anderson or or Erica Eleniak type woman. So even himself, like, he's focused on superficial aspects of women. He's not focused on knowing the character of women, because women want their character to be appreciated. It's not, yeah, I mean, like, people appreciate, like, good looks. I mean, don't get me wrong, but they also want their character to be appreciated. They want people to see them for who they are, and not just what they look like. And I think the irony is, Elliot wants people to see his inner character, but he's focused on, like, just creating this elaborate shell, but he's not allowing his inner character to be shown to people. And a lot of it, I think the hindrance was probably the communication aspect. He didn't learn how to communicate, and I'm surprised people didn't see this from him, like people that were close to him, like his parents, or people that he seeked, like, for professional help, like psychologists and psychiatrists, because really he had a big issue of, like, trying to communicate with people, and that was pretty much his biggest obstruction. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to find a way to get around that or learn how to break that barrier. And I wish there was a way that he could have been able to do that.
I want one for a girlfriend. I want to take a girl out on a date and prove to her that I'm worthy. I want to feel that sense of being worthy of a girl's love and affection. I'm 22 years old, and I've never had a girlfriend. I'm still a virgin. I've never had the pleasure of having sex with a girl, sleeping with a girl, kissing a girl. I've never even held a girl's hand. Hell, I don't even have a young girl's phone number in my cell phone. And that's just such an injustice, because I'm so magnificent. I deserve girls much more than all those slobs I see at my college who are somehow able to walk around with beautiful girls.
It probably has to do with the fact that they have character. If you want to develop character, you gotta be able to put service above self. Join the Peace Corps. Join a victim services organization. Join the military. Learn how to develop character, manners, learning how to communicate with people. And yes, you can be polite and all that stuff, but in reality, you have to have, like, a level of character that doesn't make you appear to be like some selfish, obnoxious snob. And that's the way he comes across here. Like, he has, like, this grandiose sense of self. Like, right away, I mean, you can see that he has, like, a narcissistic personality, and you can see that he has, like, a high level anxiety, and he's highly emotional. He has high degrees of emotional anxiety. His biggest problem is that he hasn't learned how to develop, like, like a solid foundation of character. And if he was to go through learning how to discipline himself, whether it be, like, learning martial arts, or being someone that, just developing just something that would develop, like, a sense of discipline in him. And clearly he doesn't have it. He just thinks the world should just be given to him, and that women should just be fawning all over him. But no, that's not the way it works. It works by showing that you are worthy, and by showing that you are worthy is showing the right level of character, that you're self-sufficient, that you have confidence in yourself, that you can handle situations, that you carry conversations. And he has all the ingredients of, like, attracting a woman, but the problem is it's his attitude. His attitude is just so incredibly obnoxious and arrogant. And it's kind of funny how he views, like, all these obnoxious brutes, and that's when he calls these supposed rivals of his. And in reality, they're probably, like, some really nice people. But yeah, It's just a complete lack of character.
Even in the college town that I stay in during my semesters, as I walk around like the common areas of those towns, or the areas where all the college parties happen, I see these obnoxious guys walking with beautiful girls. And that pisses me off because I should be the one with the girls. I mean, look at me. I'm gorgeous.
It's not about just being gorgeous. It's also having like the right level of character and personality. And clearly, you just have like this sense of delusions of grandeur that you're this God's gift to women. I mean, narcissism does not attract the right type of woman unless they're like, you know, emotionally insecure themselves. But clearly, this guy just doesn't get it.
You girls don't see it. I don't understand why you're so repulsed by me. What?
Narcissism, arrogance, an inflated ego. I mean, I can name like everything right off the bat.
Won't you give me a chance? It's ridiculous. I mean, the other day, I was doing some grocery shopping at Trader Joe's, and I was, of course, all alone, as I always am.
He sulks like a child. Like, look at that face. Like, oh, I'm just like I always am. You know, like, truthfully, I feel sorry for this guy. Because he's clearly someone that had, like, emotional problems. But at the same time, he was someone that was clearly, you know, mentally disturbed in a lot of cases. But he acts like a child. And if he was like approach a woman like and had like this sullen type look and be all morose, and you know, it's quite obvious why women were not attracted to him. It's his attitude. He just thinks he's entitled. And entitlement is one of the most unattractive things that women will ever find in a man. No one is entitled to anything. And I know with the girlfriends that I have, if they were to see this guy, they would think, oh, this guy is just a child, and you know, they're just gonna move on. Like they're just gonna be like, well, no, we're looking for men. We're not looking for little boys who haven't grown up yet. And this guy was clearly given a lot to him from the beginning. He came from an affluent family. Like, for God's sakes, I mean, his father was like the assistant director of the Hunger Games or something, Peter Rodger. I mean, like, he's a well-known producer in Hollywood. I think he had a really good start, but it just goes to prove that having nice clothes and Giorgio Armani sunglasses and driving a BMW is not going to be the things that are really going to attract the women that you seek. It might attract like maybe like a small aspect, probably like, you know, gold diggers or, you know, those types. But if you're looking for someone that really wants to be attracted to your inner character, you got to show great inner character. You got to show like a sense of resilience, and he had an opportunity to show resilience. I think he needed to learn some self-discipline and self-respect, because he doesn't have self-respect. I mean, look, does that look like the person that has self-respect? No. He just looks like someone that's trying to dress up like some type of player and then drive around in a nice car. But he just looks like a spoiled little boy who never had an opportunity to grow up or be taught how to be someone to communicate with women and to be an effective communicator. Unfortunately, he didn't learn anything. It's just so sad, like, when I come to see these videos, because I genuinely, I would have loved to help this guy if I could, if he was willing to listen.
Which makes me feel so miserable. Anyway, I was doing my shopping and I see this like disgusting looking loser. Well, he's a loser in my opinion.
There you go, going back to judging him by looks. He still doesn't understand that, you know, character might play a factor in attracting women.
And he walks in with these two beautiful blonde girls at his side.
Back to the blonde girls.
I couldn't believe my eyes. I was so insulted by that because I should be the one with the girls. But you never give me a chance. If you just give me a chance and get to know me, you'll see that I am worthy of you. Because I am. Unbelievable. I mean, this world is so beautiful, but it's so sad and depressing when I have to experience it all alone. And I have to watch other guys able to walk around and enjoy their lives with beautiful girlfriends at their side. I can only imagine how amazing their sex lives must be. I've never had any sex or any...
He's too fixated on other people's relationships instead of like cultivating a relationship for his own. And that's his major problem, because what works out for someone else does not necessarily mean it's going to work out for you. That's why it's so important he needed to develop his own character, his own independence. And there was a lot of work he needed to work on in terms of his own character. I think if he developed like independence, learned how to communicate with people, get over his emotional anxiety, and get out there and start talking to people instead of allowing himself to be isolated in an apartment room or wherever he was staying. There's a lot of things he could have overcame, but instead he just succumbed to his weaknesses, and that was just that, well, if I can't have you, then I'm going to destroy you, which was, quite frankly, the works of a sociopath. He's not a psychopath. And the reason why I say that is because he does have like a level of empathy. Like, he loves his family. He loves certain friends of his, like a particular friend of his by the name of James. And however, he would be a sociopath, and sociopaths are made, right? Whereas they tend to lack. They tend to develop like senses of being able to manipulate people for their own advantage, and he was able to manipulate his parents quite well in terms of allowing them not to find out what he was planning on doing with his day of retribution. And in this case, he'd definitely be a sociopath for sure. Because at the end of things, he didn't care. He went out, he killed indiscriminately, he thought that the world owed him things, but in reality, the world really owed him nothing. He owed himself to develop, his character, and he chose to pursue a path of malevolence and destruction, and that will be the story of his life.
Like that. It's such an injustice. I don't know why you girls hate me so much. I've always wished I could ask you this, and this is my way of asking you this.
Again, here he is. He's definitely going to cry here. And yeah, he has such emotional volatility about him. And I imagine it wouldn't take much to get him upset, and that's the tragedy of this whole situation. I think he would have had potential, but he's just so neurotic in terms of how he expresses himself. Like, he can just go from 0 to Mach 10 within just a matter of minutes, and I think he just made so many mountains out of molehills, in terms of his life, and he really needed to work on his character. And I know I'm kind of just repeating this thing over and over again, but that's really what's really coming down to it, is character. He's too fixated on superficial aspects and not on developing a genuine, benevolent, good character.
This is the only way I can ask.
I wish I could seriously, I wish I could have had a conversation with him. Because I really would have wanted to help him. I think this situation could have been prevented. There was a lot of things about him that I think that was just went untreated. I think that living on his own, he was able to develop like sociopathic tendencies where like he was, lying to his parents in terms of what he was doing and not registering for his classes, and then planning for this day of retribution where he was going to wreak havoc on all his enemies. And in reality, he just led himself into a path of destruction, which inevitably he ended up killing himself. And that's the most tragic thing of all. When I look at Elliot Rodger, I look at a guy who had a lot of potential to do well in life, and he had a good start in life. As mentioned before, he came from an affluent family. He certainly would have had network connections, and if you were to read his manifesto, it was actually, quite frankly, well written, despite being a piece of work that was reflecting upon his own inner madness. And a lot of it was just the thoughts that he had towards women were just so wrong and so egregious that a lot of it was just him communicating his pain. I think in reality, he had potential. I mean, I look at myself here. When I look at Elliot, I see a guy who dresses nice, and quite frankly, he's a good-looking fella. I speak that from a heterosexual point of view. But what he was really lacking was the character. If he overcame his demons and he learned how to communicate, and he focused on acts of benevolence and learning how to be a kind and genuine good person, and learning how to look after his affairs, take on independence, and learning how to be a friend and give to people instead of taking for himself. I mean, I think that would have worked out to his benefit. Unfortunately, he took a destructive path, and he's no longer with us, along with 6 other people. I only wish it had a different outcome, but I think if someone was able to talk to him, it's quite possible that this whole incident could have been prevented. So if you ever see a person like this communicating in this style and form, be someone to talk to them. Let them know that they can overcome it, but they have to start with themselves. They have to start loving themselves, and they have to start appreciating who they are. Because people are not going to love them for them. They're going to love them for who they are and what they demonstrate. It's one thing to be a good-looking person, but it's another thing to be a good-looking person with genuine good character. And that's what Elliot failed to learn. Okay, this is Ethereal Fox, signing off. As someone who has worked in crisis intervention, I just want you to know that there is help available. I hope these contacts serve you as a guide in finding that help. If you're someone that suffers from suicidal tendencies or have had suicidal tendencies in the past, I just want you to know that there is help available. I hope these contacts serve you well in finding that help. And if you need someone to talk to, feel free to leave me a message. I'd be glad to help you out any way I can. Thank you for watching.